Do you remember over winter things didn't exactly go to plan with this tree? Oh, I think I broke it. I think I'm going to stop there. What a disaster. What's happening, everybody? It's Tiny Tree Tuesday. It's the bonsai show where I sit down with one of my trees and talk you through what I'm doing and why, and show how you can work on and progress simple material to produce trees that you can be proud of. So let's dive in. Regular viewers of my channel might remember this tree. It's been featured in numerous videos. I created it from a garden centre tree and I've filmed pretty much the entire process. Over the winter I gave it a prune and things didn't go exactly to plan. I've got some wire still on the branches. Also it needs a prune. Let's come in close and see what we've got. Okay, so here's the front of the tree. As always, let's start with cleaning. Here we've got two established primary branches opposite each other. Now we've got this young piece that's come from the crotch. I'm going to remove that crotch piece. And if I follow this branch up here, we've got a really strong shoot coming off here. And nearby there's an established piece. I don't need that young shoot. It's also very straight and it doesn't really have anything interesting going for it. So that's another one that I can remove. And with the actual branch out of the way, I can just get rid of that stub. Following this branch up, we've got some buds on the inside. We've got a nice secondary piece here. Yeah, I think we can keep that one. And just work along, looking for any unwanted vertical growth, bottom growth, any dead stubs, and anywhere that there's multiple branches coming from one spot. I think we're all good in there. We've got a number of buds. We do have a couple of very strong vertical pieces. This branch here, that branch in there, it's coming from a crotch and it's vertical, growing back in towards the tree. It's very strong, so I don't want this one. I want to keep the two branches that were already there. They're in better positions. They've got a bit more age to them. Okay, so there's one small one that I'm keeping, and then this stronger, younger one here as well. That's taken that down to two. We've got a piece coming up in towards the tree on the inside of the crotch there, and we've got this piece. They're both coming from the same crotch. So I'm just going to see if I can make a decision now about what to keep there. I will do so. So I can't make the decision at the moment. I don't know if I need one or both of these. Okay, so now if I follow this bit up, what have we got growing on here? We've got a piece here that's getting quite strong, but it's in a good position. Yeah, I'll keep that one. And then we've got another piece here, very strong, but again, it's in a good position. And then we've got the bit of the end. I'm not sure if we'll keep that end piece because this branch is getting a little long and it continues in the same direction. But again, I won't make that choice just yet. Okay, so if I look at this bit, I've just got two shoots on there and a bunch of buds. That's fine. And then there's another branch here that's got quite a lot going on. That branch there is broken, so I'll cut that back to the break. So this is Berberis thunbergii, Atropurpurea nana, dwarf red leaf Japanese barberry, something like that. So now with this branch, we've got the primary piece, we've got a nice strong bit coming up here, and then we've got another secondary here, which further divides into a tertiary piece here, and then we've got a tertiary here that was broken, and then the bit at the end here as well. So that's coming on nicely. And then we're following what is essentially the trunk line up. Let's see if we need to clean anything here. Pull some of these leaves out the crutches again so I can see into the structure. They produce a lot. They produce almost like a floret of leaves right at the base of the branch, which makes it quite difficult to see which shoot's coming from where. You don't need these leaves at the end of the day. It just looks cluttered as a bonsai. I'm happy to leave these leaves while the tree's growing, but when it comes to doing work on it, just really obstructs your view, makes everything look much more condensed, much denser than it really is. Oftentimes it looks like several branches are all coming from one spot when actually you've just got one or two, and a bunch of foliage all bunched up in there. Although you've got to be careful not to remove any buds. It might be that you've got a really nice bud in a perfect position. You don't want to pull that off. At this point in time, this is a keeper, this bit down here. We've got two branches here going off in different directions, and from the crotch of those two branches we've got this piece. And the question is, do I want to keep this piece, or do I want to remove one of those more established sections that aren't forming a particularly attractive junction? Yeah, because we've got this branch is coming off almost horizontally in this direction, and this, you could almost say that this is the apex. You know, the trunk comes up here and goes back that way, and that junction's quite, I mean, it's not particularly attractive. It's got some scars on it as well. I'll leave it for the time being. We're just cleaning at the moment. Okay, on to the next crotch. Just clear out a few leaves so I can tell what's what. We've got this piece and then this small shoot coming back over the top of the tree. I'm happy with those. We do have two shoots here. We've got one coming forwards and one coming backwards, and then the central piece. And there's a bit of a stub as well. Take that stub out, see if that makes that junction just look a little bit more attractive. The stub was looking kind of bulky. Just in here, this is my main area of focus. We've got this one, that branch there, coming from here, and towards the back we've got this little shoot, again coming from the same location. I'm going to take this bit off. It's on the inside of the bend, and I've also got other pieces to work with in this area, so I don't need it. Let's try and find a way in here. There we go. Right, I'm just going to clean out some more of these crotches just to see if we've got any issues forming. See how that's really just cleaning up the lines, pulling out those interior pieces of foliage. Makes visibility so much easier. That's revealed a couple of stubs that I can remove. I'm going to keep everything nice and clean, keep everything tidy, remove the clutter. Just having a look at that, look at the wire, see if we've got any snug sections, and we do. We do indeed have some snug sections of wire, so let's see about taking that wire off. Just going to very carefully unwind. Where I can, I'll cut it. It's going to be quite tricky to get cutters in here because the wire is quite snug now. It hasn't bitten in as such. And then in the same way that you have to support the branch when you're putting the wire on, you also have to support the branch when you're unwinding it as well, to save any unwanted damage or breakages. This is a really good time to take a break and answer one of your questions. Matt Young asks how to prune for ramification. So first, what is ramification? Well, ramification is the tendency for a branch to subdivide until it forms a pad or a billow of foliage. So you'll have a single primary branch, and that will give rise to secondary branches, and then those secondary branches will have tertiaries, and then the tertiaries divide and divide and divide until we have our pad or our billow. So when we say we're pruning for ramification, what we mean is we're pruning to increase the density of the fine twigging or to refine the appearance of the twigging. For instance, we might make a prune to improve the taper of the ramification, or we might simply be pruning to remove density so that it feels more light and airy and lets more light into the interior. But today I'm going to focus on pruning to build ramification. When pruning to build ramification, we make sure that we're pruning so that we leave 2 twigs at any subdivision, and we will also make our cuts to ensure that there are 2 viable buds at any one location. The reason we leave 2 buds is because those buds, as a result of the pruning action, will then grow, and that will give rise to a division of one piece into 2. And then as we prune again, the 2 become 4. We prune again and the 4 become 8 over successive prunings over successive seasons. And depending on the species, we might get more than one flush of growth in a single season, or it might be that we come back the following year. The term ramification doesn't just refer to the number of twigs, it also refers to how fine the twigs are. The way the twigs are refined, made finer or less coarse, is partly the pruning action, which increases the number of twigs, which forces the tree to share the amount of energy it has between more and more buds, and the energy it has is limited by the size of the pot. Now there are species that pruning alone won't guarantee that you get more than one branch extending as a result of our pruning, and there are other species that are really strong and quite coarse, and they'll produce a second flush of growth after pruning that's equally as coarse as the previous flush, and so you don't necessarily get that refinement as quickly. There are other techniques to provoke more reliable flushes of growth that are more refinable, but I'll go into those perhaps another day. Obviously this is a very high level discussion, so I've only really scratched the surface, but hopefully that's given you a very high level view of building ramification using pruning. So if you've got a question, feel free to ask in the comments or write me an email or reach out somehow and I'll feature it in the next video. That's the cleaning and unwiring done. So now we just got some choices to make and some branches to prune. Let's find the front. I delayed making a couple of decisions from the cleaning process. The first is what to do with these. We've got a, I don't know, there's a secondary branch coming out here. We've got two tertiary pieces coming from the same junction, both coming from this junction here on this secondary branch. There's the primary, and we've got two secondaries, and on this secondary we've got these two tertiary branches. The question there is, which of these two do I want to keep? I've got to get rid of one of those because it's forming a bull's horn or a frog leg or whatever you want to call it. The other decision that I've delayed is what to do in this area. The trunk line comes up and then back to form this bit. So this is kind of the apex right in here. And then we've got this branch coming out here almost horizontal. And then we've got a piece from the crotch that's got a better angle, but it's, you know, it's basically this year's growth, so it's all green and not particularly old. We've got a piece off to the back coming from roughly the same area as well, so I need to resolve that. With this one, I'm going to remove this piece because I think as it grows and thickens in time, I think it's going to form a really ugly knuckle. So let's just nip that one in the bud right now. So this one being slightly towards the back of the branch, if it does form an ugly knuckle, it's not going to be as visible, whereas that would have been right in your face. Then this one here, for me, it doesn't really have much going for it. It's got an ugly knuckle on the end, several pruning marks, and then it's coming off at a weird angle. I'm going to remove this one as well. And then whether I keep this one or this one, they're not coming from the same location, so it doesn't really matter. So for the time being, I'm actually going to keep both of these. Okay, so let's start pruning the length back. So I'll start on this branch to start with, and this is coming right out. As you can see, it's got quite a long first internode there. So I'm just going to cut back to the one bud on that one. There's nothing that needs pruning on this bit. We do have quite a long first internode, but the second internode is reasonably short. I'll cut back to 2 on that bit. When that's lignified, a bit of wire to position that nicely, and that'll be good. We've got a node just here, and then a fairly long distance to the next node. I'm going to cut back to 2 though. I'll cut back to 2 buds here, 1, 2 at the end, and the same one with this one. There's a node there and another one there. I'll cut back to 2 on that one. No, in fact I'm going to cut back to the 3rd bud on that. The 3rd node on that one, because I want a bit more length there. And then as we come out to the tip here, 2 on that, and 2 there as well. And although there's quite a bit of distance from the bud that's here to the bud that's here, when it's wireable, I can put that in a position like that, and that'll fill in some of the negative space towards the back of the tree. So I'll still cut back to 2. With this back piece, I will also cut back to 2, because if I wanted to leave 3 and then wire it into a better position to give this billow a bit more depth, but the 3rd would have been right out here interfering with this section, so I've cut it back to 2. I'll still wire it so that it's in its own bit of light. In fact, to be honest, I'm actually going to cut that back to the 1st node. I don't need it to be as long as it is, so I'll cut it back to the 1st node, and hopefully the next flush will be a bit finer, so it won't come right stretching out across here. And where it is there is actually doing quite a good job of filling in some negative space, so that I'm happy with that. And then still on the same primary structure, we've got this big strong piece up here. And I cut back to 1 bud on this one as well. Ideally I want to be cutting back to 2 buds so that I can increase the ramification from 1 into 2. But where I've got quite a long internode to the second node and it's a really strong branch, I really just want to hold it back, and hopefully we'll get more buds pop and we'll still be able to increase the ramification, but the quality will be just that bit better because it will be finer. It won't be this big coarse skyward branch. That's my theory anyway. We'll see how the tree reacts. Okay, that's that branch taken care of. We'll follow this one out. We've got a couple of pieces here. So the internode from the trunk to the first, the distance from the trunk to the first node here is quite long, but the distance between the first node and the second node is quite short, so I'll cut back to 2 on this one. And on this one, I'm happy to cut back to 2, no problem. And we've got a bud there, so I'll cut back to that second one. On this piece near the apical region, again we've got a nice couple of buds that we can cut back to there. And then it's just a case of deciding how tall I want this piece. I think that's a nice place to cut back to. So that's leaving 3 buds on the apical region there. More for the height rather than the desire to leave 3. It's just that little bit taller. A little bit later in the year when these shoots have lignified a bit more, I'll come back and wire them. Numerous videos. I created it here. So you do some. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.